I can see that.
You know what? Let's get straight down to business. Today we're gonna go over second tab in Program Edit screen on MPC, which is called Samples. Welcome to Creative Therapy. I will be referring to the previous episode where I went over Global tab in Program Edit and certain parts, so I encourage you to check that out before you watch this video. But if you're familiar with Global tab, let's go. At a first glance, this screen looks quite similar to the Sample Edit screen, where we mainly go over chopping our sample. Here, on the other hand, you have a choice of different types of adjustments. The very top part of the screen shows us the visual representation of loaded up to the pad samples. Directly beneath it, you can find 4 tabs representing each up to 4 layers of samples per pad. Depending on the layer play option chosen on global screen, in that order samples will be triggered. More here. All settings below are related to the currently selected layer. First off, we have Sample. Here we choose which from loaded to the memory samples is going to be assigned to this layer. There are several options which slice of the sample is used. All means the whole length of the sample is assigned to that layer, yet you can still change the start and end point. The second available for us option is Pad. This allows you to also alter the start and end point of a sample, and I didn't see any reason why this option even exists. Should you have loaded or recorded a sample and chopped it up in Sample Edit screen, those slices are going to be available to assign to the pad. Start and end points play, pun intended, another role besides just setting the range of the waveform that is playable. This is directly related to another feature on this screen, Loop. When setting the start point at the same time, value under loop changes, telling us what part of the sample will be our loop start. As clear as day, the endpoint also determines the endpoint of our loop. There's one thing to remember. If a loop lock has been disabled in Sample Edit screen, the start of a loop can be set independently to the sample start point. Before we dive deeper into the pad loop, an important information. The pad loop option is only available if sample play and global tab is set to not on. Otherwise, this option is grayed out, as by holding the pad we decide how long the loop is to last. It's worth mentioning that there is an option to set the sample playback to reverse, and this also has an impact on how the loop behaves. Therefore, I will cover all the variations at the same time. When we first engage pad loop, it is presented with an arrow pointing to the right, meaning the loop will play from start to finish as long as the pad is pressed. If reverse is selected, the loop will sound in, well, reverse. By pressing on the pad loop again, arrows show on both sides, and the sample will play from the start to the end and back, and will continue to do so as long as we continue to hold. With reverse option, this playback is simply also reversed. The last option, with the arrow pointing to the left, engages the sample from start to finish, and after that, it loops sample playback from the end to start. But in reverse, this option plays back the sample in this order: reverse, and then reverse constant loop, because upon triggering the pad, our endpoint becomes our start point. Since MPC is able to detect the key of our sample, we have an option to alter and fine adjust it. Here, adjustments only apply to the sample and layer we're working on, as opposed to the whole program in case of semi and fine adjustments in Global tab. We have an option to shrink our sample up to 25% of its original length, or we can also extend the sample up to 400%, making it 4 times longer. Shortening or extending the sample can be done independently or synced with the BPM of our project. But remember, altering the length of the sample will also change its pitch. But there is a help with that, should you want to avoid it, in the form of warp, which allows the length alteration without changing the pitch. Additionally, the stretch can be done not only according to the project BPM, but also to the set by us value of BPM. Be careful with warp, as it's really CPU resources hungry.
So use it wisely, you should.
Anyway, the last but not least, we have an option to create what's called tail, which basically refers to a short snippet of your sample taken by MPC and placed right after sample's playback, which can in some cases sound like an echo effect. You can determine how much of the end of the sample is used as a tail from 4 to 1000 milliseconds, which basically creates a loop. And with the tail length, you can determine how many times the tail gets repeated and how long it takes for the tail to be slowly faded away. Now let's get into the second tab within Sample Screen. I realized that there's a lot to get your head around. Therefore, I decided it would be more manageable to address each tab in its own video. So stay tuned for the next one. If you like this video, demolish that like button. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or comments in general, leave them in the comment section below. If you'd like to stay up to date and support the channel at the same time, consider subscribing to it and turn on that bell notification to never miss a video. If you'd like to further support the channel and its growth, consider becoming a patron. If you think it's worth it, buy me a coffee. All the links are available in the description. And for now, keep occupied.